Hi, my name is Brianna Nelson, and today I will be discussing place-based education. So why place-based education? Place-based education is a teaching pedagogy that kind of connects your community to your students and really utilizes your community and space as the classroom. So I'll dive into that a little bit deeper when we get into the 6 principles of place-based education and what that kind of means. But there's a number of different benefits to including place-based education in your teaching. And this might be something that you already do, but some of the benefits that we know of are students being challenged in different ways. So whether that be through social or ecological or cultural lenses, there's also different ways or modalities of learning. So inquiry-based learning, interdisciplinary learning, design thinking, those can all be included within this idea of place-based education. It's very relevant and engaging, and students are often motivated both within the classroom and to learn, but then become motivated to engage outside of the classroom within their community as well, because they've now learned that the local community and its contexts are something that are personally relevant to them. So there's a lot of great benefits, and it provides a lot of great context and connections to your students, especially in relation to agricultural projects. So next we're going to talk about exploring your place. So kind of just to prime you into thinking about what your place is, we're going to be doing an activity. So this activity is called Place Triangle. And in the Google Classroom, there is a worksheet that you can use that you will kind of make notes about your place. And this might be the place that you're in right now. This might be the place that your students will be in. This could be a place that you think your students will be in or you plan to take them to. So it should be something relevant to the project, but it can be any place that you really want to have as your place. That being said, I'd like you to think about your place in terms of ecology, economy, and culture. So what kind of economic structures are there? Are there different businesses? Are there different industries that are nearby? What about culture? What kind of cultures exist in your community? How can your students connect to those different cultures? What is a historical culture? And then ecology. What kind of natural habitats are there? What different ecological foundations are there? So thinking about what do you see? How would you describe it? What do you notice about it? You might write down what you see, what you hear, maybe even what you smell. On the worksheet, there is a list of different questions to kind of get you thinking about what ideas are relevant to each kind of edge of the place triangle. So pause the video here, complete your place triangle, and we'll come back. And when we come back, we'll talk about the 6 principles of place-based education. Welcome back. So now we'll talk about the 6 principles of place-based education. So these are the foundational elements of place-based education, and they include local to global context, learner-centered, inquiry-based, design thinking, community as classroom, and interdisciplinary approach. So we'll go into that a little bit deeper and kind of just break each topic down. So the first principle is local to global context, and within this, local learning serves as a model for understanding regional and global challenges, opportunities, and connections. So starting with the self to gain understanding, we can start with what the students connect to, and then what the school can provide, the community, and the nation and world. So with the idea of scaling, we don't want to scale up too quickly. So if we're talking about something like natural resources, and we jump all the way to rainforest deforestation, students may kind of become fearful and kind of discouraged to engage in those situations because they seem so big and unsolvable. To combat this is where the local to global context really plays in. So if we talk about self and then school, so how does natural resources connect to our school? How does it connect to our community? Are there ways that the community is managing natural resources? Are there ways that we can help with the management of natural resources? All of that kind of plays together with this idea of local to global context, of really making sure that we connect it on a smaller scale before we jump all the way up to what's going on in the world. Not only will it help students with the understanding of what is going on and kind of really digging deeper into ideas of solving these real world challenges, they can actually see themselves within the system. So it kind of is beneficial in a number of ways, but local to global context is essentially looking at that place triangle or looking at your community and seeing how you can make context within your own community or school. The next principle of PBE is inquiry-based learning or inquiry-based design. And I'm sure many of you do inquiry-based learning in your classrooms already, but in the context of place-based education, inquiry-based learning is learning that is grounded in observing, asking relevant questions, making predictions, and collecting data to understand the world through economic, ecological, and cultural lenses. So those three components of the place triangle, really using those as our lenses of how we're viewing the world. One example of inquiry-based learning and place-based learning that I like to use is an activity called BioBlitz. And with BioBlitz, students use an app called iNaturalist, and they go out and the app is set up so that you can take pictures of plants or bugs or animals, and it'll give you ideas of what species or what kind of identification your subject or sample is. So if I went out and took a picture of a tree and I didn't know what it was, it'll give me a list of different options. So maybe it's a Norfolk pine, and it gives me that option. So maybe I select that. That'll be shared with other naturalists who might go, I don't think that's what that is because of XYZ, and it'll give you a new suggestion of what they think it is. So you're kind of collaborating in this citizen science way of identifying different plants and animals and insects in your area, and also collaborating with different scientists across the world. And you can kind of discuss your findings and provide more pictures and really dive deep into what the kind of sample or item is. And it's a lot of fun. And it's called BioBlitz because as soon as you kind of start collecting one sample or two samples, you kind of just go on a blitz and you take as many as you possibly can. So I have done this in a number of different places, and the first few pictures people are kind of like, okay, yeah, I get the idea. But if you take them on like a walk, they soon very quickly are like, well, what's that? What's that? What's that? And it creates this map of all of the different species of plants and animals and insects and more that are located in your little area. So not only are you kind of mapping it out and looking at different ways or different items that exist in your area, but you're also collaborating with scientists and really joining in on that scientific conversation. The next principle is learner-centered. So learning is personally relevant to students and enables student agency. In this kind of idea, the teacher serves more as a guide or facilitator to learning than a classical role of like a lecturer or really engaged in that teaching role. And again, this might be something that you do with your students already and allow them to kind of have choice and have that facilitator role. In terms of place-based education, it's driven by four main components. So voice, giving students a chance to share their opinions and what they believe. So really making sure that they're part of that conversation and part of the discussion. Choice, so students can make their own decisions to self-regulate and really advocate for themselves. The third is motivation, so students are intrinsically motivated, engaging for personal reward. So really finding something that they're personally motivated by, not just something that they are having to engage in, but something they want to engage in. And self-efficacy, so they can approach these complex, challenging tasks with confidence. They're welcoming of challenges. So these are the 4 kind of pillars of learner-centered within place-based education. The next one is design thinking. So this is a systematic approach for students to make meaningful impact in communities through curriculum. So there are a number of different ways that this could be implemented. But again, this also has 4 kind of major pillars to this idea. Define, so notice and reflect, define the problem. Generate, connect with personal experience and places. Create, creating the solution, building and implementing. And evaluate, is it feasible? And a big question is it good for our place? Is it good for our place? Is it good for the people it's being implemented for? So with design thinking, these are oftentimes service learning or volunteer work. So really looking at problems. So maybe the school has a water crisis and the water is not very safe for drinking. So maybe that's our problem. We're going to generate ideas that connect to our personal place. So the place is our school. Our school does not have clean drinking water. So what kind of solutions can we develop to implement that? Maybe we'll do a water drive and have bottled water donated. Or maybe we'll think about how we could access clean water in the school and then evaluate it. Is it feasible? Is this something that is doable for our students? And is it good for our place? So these are all kind of things to think about with design thinking. And there's some more examples of these later on, but these are just kind of some brief ideas. The next one is interdisciplinary approach. And this is something that has been previously discussed, so I won't go too deeply into this, but curriculum really matches that real world where the traditional subject area, content, skills, and dispositions are taught through an integrated and frequently project-based approach. So interdisciplinary, really working within your teaching teams and making sure that when solving problems or working on projects, you're not just using one discipline, but many disciplines. And the last one is community as classroom. So this is really, communities are serving as that ecosystem for learning, where local and regional experts, experience, and places are all part of this expanded definition of a classroom. So what do you have in your community that you can use to engage learners in? Do you have a local park? Do you have businesses or industries? Do you have waterways? Do you have, what kind of access do you have to different things? So all of these things are totally relevant to your community and can be defined as your classroom. So place-based doesn't have to be somewhere exotic or far away. You don't have to go on a field trip. You don't have to go to, somewhere that is far away. It really can just exist right where you are. So another kind of activity, this is also something that is in your Google Classroom that I would like you to complete or, think about, is this expanded idea on the place triangle. And so you'll see again, we have ecology, economy, and culture on the outside, but on those inner circles, we have campus, walking, and driving. So what is related to economy that is on your campus or very close to campus? What is it within walking distance? What's within driving distance? And think of some of these ideas for ecology, economy, and culture, because it'll help you guide how you want to or where you want to have your students engage. You can also bring in local and regional experts. So maybe there's somebody from a business that is willing to come in and speak, or now with technology, Zoom in and would like to talk to your class. Or what are some regional experts? Maybe there's somebody from the DNR that can come in and talk about different elements of your community. So there's a lot of ways that we can expand this definition of classroom. So it's not just the 4 walls inside of your school. It is much bigger and more impactful than that. So this is a video that I think demonstrates the idea of place-based education very well. It's about 5 or so minutes, but it really shows kind of that engagement of place-based education in action and can kind of give you some guiding ideas of what is going on. The link to that is in the Google Classroom, so you can watch that following this and really see what is kind of going on or how to really engage within place-based education, especially in the context of what's right in your own backyard. These are some examples of lessons. So these are hyperlinked and they're also in the Google Classroom of some place-based education lesson plans. So one is building a library. So in this example, a school was kind of moving to a new building and they wanted to build a library within their new building. And they kind of had each grade be a different part of the planning team of this library. So some of them were in charge of organizing, some of them were in charge of layout, some of them were in charge of cataloging. So they all played this role in building this library that served as this kind of really major cornerstone of their community. The next example, teaching biology to politicians. This is a really interesting one where a class kind of learned different biological elements and taught them to politicians as a way to show that their kind of policies impact biology. And so by doing this, they can create that connection to not only the environment, but also students and kind of that local governmental system. And the third one then is water project. And this one, students explored water in a number of different ways, and they really made it relevant to their own school. And this one was also scaled up to then be connected to nation and world. So this is a good example of kind of that scaling from a local to global context. So now, as a reflection, I'd like you to think about ways you can use place-based education to connect to your lesson plans and teaching practices. So maybe you've already been doing something like this. Maybe you haven't. So in what ways can you use these ideas to really connect to your lesson plans or teaching practices? And the second one is, in what ways can you use and explore your place? So I really want you to really dive deep into ways you can explore and use your place. So for example, here in Indiana, there are a lot of different historical sites. So not far from Purdue is the Tippecanoe Battlefield, which has a lot of different historical context, especially in terms of who is being heard and who is not being heard. So it's very centralized on American soldiers, and it kind of erases the idea of the native population that was living here prior. So there's kind of this interesting who is being heard and who is not being heard. So that's another way you can think about this idea of exploring your place. So you can respond in the Google Classroom to these reflection questions and kind of really, really dig deep into what your place is. So I'd like to thank Dr. Weiwei Wang and Dr. Neil Knobloch, as well as USDA NEFA for funding this project. Again, my name is Brianna Nelson, and there is my contact information. Please email me if you have any questions or you would like to kind of bounce ideas off of me. I'm very open and like to discuss this, so thank you.